Welcome to the Real Estate Development Land to Legacy podcast, the ultimate resource for aspiring real estate developers and enthusiasts. I'm Eugene Gershman. In each episode, we dive deep into the journeys of industry leaders, uncovering their wisdom, successes, and the lessons learned from their challenges.
Real estate development.
Today, we're talking to Owen Reimer, a real estate developer from Steinbach, Manitoba, Canada, who is going to share his experiences with us and let us learn from his mistakes and aspire to match his successes. Owen, welcome.
Thank you.
So I'll let you introduce yourself properly. I kind of stole some of the introduction from your LinkedIn profile, but you are the best person to tell the audience about who you are, what you do, and how did you get started?
Sure. Yeah, we're a small multifamily developer where we syndicate our deals and we operate them. We typically do it within about an hour and a half of where we live right now. It lets us have a bit of an insider view on the market. So we build multifamily and we bring in third-party property management to run them with the tenants, and our investors profit on the build side of things. How I got into it is I used to be in financial services for many years. I sold that back in 2019. During that time period, I was doing that. I was raising private equity in what we call the exempt market in Canada, which is a private equity space. And we'd seen a lot of other groups doing development or real estate in some shape or format. And, we would put our investors' money in that, and they would often do really well if it was real estate based, especially. And long story short, after going through some renditions of figuring out what to do when I grow up, is a nice way to say it. It made the most sense for me to work with my partners and do it ourselves, in that we can raise the capital from our investor partners and we develop, and then we own them long term together with our investor partners. So that's what we do. Lots of fun, lots of lessons, and keeps me going. So
interesting. So question about your first deal. So you've been selling investments for some time. You're experienced in that. You know how to raise funds. You're seeing all these deals being developed, and you're like, okay, well, I can do it myself. I can be the developer. How did that go for your first time?
Well, I guess I'm going to go backwards a little bit. We did, between kind of selling my financial services business and getting into real estate, me and a few partners got into a retail store, like a dollar store called Great Canadian Dollar Store. And timing didn't work out great with COVID, in that we had shutdowns and we kind of were starting up at that point in time and had massive losses and ended up selling at a discount. In the meantime, though, one of the buildings we bought, myself and a partner bought ourselves, and we bought for just over $500,000, did a little bit of work into it. And we got it appraised based on our, even I'll call it low cost rent, is what I would say we had. And we immediately over doubled the value of the building. Fast forward a little bit of time, and that kind of put the light bulb moment, saying we need to get into called bigger scalable real estate. I'd always seen guys doing small single family rentals where we call them up and downs, where maybe on the first floor there's a rental, in the basement there's a rental. And I was like, that's really difficult to scale. How do you do that? But how do you get bigger? So now I'd seen how you go a little bit bigger. We got actually, after our dollar store left that building, we really released it out to a national franchise, and the value I think was around, from just over 500,000 to about 1.6 million. Now, I looked at it and said, the building didn't really change at all. It was all based on the rent, right? And I kind of knew some of that stuff, but the light bulb moment and said, let's just scale whatever we do. Let's not do a small thing. Let's do a bigger thing.
Mm-hmm.
So with the same partners, we looked at building some multifamily. There was some lots that were kind of popping up available, and I found a fourplex lot and thought, let's do this. A fourplex would be great. Then we started running the numbers. And there was also a bigger lot, and you could do a 16 on there, 16 unit. And we thought, well, our land costs aren't really that much more. Our per door construction is exactly the same price, if not maybe a bit cheaper per door because of scale.
Right.
Let's just do a 16. So that's how we got to our first syndication, where we had our own money, plus we brought in investor partners on a syndication. We managed the build, and we came in, I think, $25,000 over budget. So I figured that's a pretty good win, right? Investors have done really well in that. And then we've we parlayed that into another 20 unit building. I did a big renovation recently on a different building. That wasn't a syndication structure. And we have a trailer park that we rezoned some of the land to multifamily, where we plan to hopefully start building next year on that. In the meantime, we also have a 36 unit multifamily building going up in a town called St. Pierre, Manitoba. And we are at the framing stage right now. So, and long term, I'm super excited because this will be our first building with an elevator. Very attractive to, we'll call it the seniors in the area or anybody who doesn't like to do stairs. So
Nice.
That's kind of how we got started. We started small with like some commercial pieces and then jumped into, we were going to do the fourplex. Here's the funny thing is I put my name on the lot to buy it, and then we decided we're not going to do it. So we're going to get rid of the lot. In the meantime, we find out that there was some things could be changed on what you could build there a little bit. And I was able to, we'll call it, assign the deal for $7,000. So, the lot purchase wasn't very much. So it was a significant jump. And that kind of opened my eyes up. I never really seen wholesaling before, I guess, but I did it without really knowing what I was doing. I was like, oh, this would be a fun side thing. You can get caught holding deals. So it's not always the best thing, but it was a really interesting way of looking at how do we acquire future land deals. This is a way to do it, and we can get rid of them if we don't want to keep them before we even take ownership. So
right. Excellent. So if I'm looking to get into real estate development and I would like to figure out, I mean, conceptually, I get it. There's land cost, there's some development cost, and so forth. There's construction cost. How do you know how much things are going to cost before you make the commitment that this is what you're going to do?
Well, I think the key item on that is, especially if you've never done it, you need to bring in a partner or an advisor or a contractor, somebody who's done it, like start to finish. And you just bring them in and you figure out how can they participate along the way in some shape or format, whether they're a general contractor who guides you along the way or a project manager or whatever the case may be. And they let you figure out things along the way, and they let you learn all the little tips and tricks and steps. And so you watched it the first, and that's what we did. We brought in, we had a project, we called it a general contractor, really wasn't. He was more like a project manager, great guy, helped us out in the first couple builds. And we learned, right, what to do, what works, what doesn't work. And then, we've taken it from there, and we brought in another a project manager that has bigger experience in building projects and allows us to just, scale up a little bit more. And then you go into the next stage where you're building on a bigger site and you have a bigger project, and your project manager says, okay, you need to have a skid steer on site. And you go, oh, okay. How much does that cost? Right. So you got to factor you got to learn along the way, because you can't, if you go from nothing to like, I'm going to build a 100-plex, you're going to fall flat in your face unless your partner knows everything and they're in charge. You're just a tag along.
Right.
But if you're trying to learn that on your own, it's always good to have somebody who's done it before you be kind of, I would say, the lead on the project, so that you're learning as you go and making less mistakes. They're keeping you from making some big mistakes. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. Exactly. Yeah. Good partnerships is what is driving progress, because it is, I like to describe myself, I'm like the ultimate DIYer. I want to figure out how to do everything on my own. And at one point, we used to continue growing and building our construction division while growing the development division. And pretty soon I realized that I cannot possibly do it all myself. I have to bring in people that would focus on different things and would help manage and run different sides of the business. So are you, right now, are you your own general contractor, or do you bring in a third-party general contractor?
Yeah, we would call ourselves our own general contractor, where we self-perform on the building side of things. I have a project manager internally that keeps us on going forward. We are fortunate with the area we live. I'd say we have lots of fantastic contractors who have experience. There's different scales of size that they work in, but there's lots of great contractors in all the different areas, whether that be framing, lumber yards, everybody kind of has a way of, they understand the model of let's build, with economies in mind, right? Whether it's with speed, cost, all the different things. And they view it as, they even view it as they're a partner. Even if they're not money involved, they're a partner because they understand their business depends on everybody's success. So there's not a big price gouging going on overall. Usually, during the COVID time period, the construction world was a little different. Like you could, if you found a deal on any kind of material, you just bought it all. Like, oh, I don't know how much I need, but I'm going to buy everything because I don't know when it's going to be available next, right? So you were like, okay, there's a sale on tubs. We can get 20, but we only need 16. Buy them all because we'll need them eventually, or whatever the case may be. That's the nice thing, is that seems to have gone away now where we are. Some of the price on materials has really hurt overall, just the raw materials. Labor has gone up, of course, but we work with great contractors. To give you an example, our electrical contractor, I mean, he knew we had our build coming up here, and we said, yeah, we're going forward with it. And copper prices are going up, but he locked in pricing back in, let's say, January, so that we're not having a massive price increase. We'll probably start pulling wire in this build maybe in a couple weeks. So, had he not done that, we would have seen a massive price increase. So they're looking out for you, because a win for us is a win for them. Because if we do good, we're going to keep building. And if we work well together and like each other, we're going to put them at the top of our list, right? Who to use next time. And that's a learning process too. That's where our project manager has massive amounts of experience with different trades and building for companies who've scaled. And he's brought some of those relationships into this building project, and that's been great. So like I could summarize in saying you're putting up buildings, but a lot of it is you're leveraging good relationships or partnerships, right? And with it, whether it being your investor partners, those are built on relationships. And then also, I'm a general contractor. I don't really see myself that way. Like if you'd come to me from the street and say, hey, can you build me an apartment building? I'd be like, no, we don't do that, right? I'm not working for the outside. We do it internally to make the numbers work, to keep our prices down. That's basically it. It's not a profit center, generally speaking.
Gotcha. That's interesting. Yeah, we had it set up. We had a general contractor, and we would market ourselves as we would do fee-based work, and we have done some fee-based projects. And then we would also be building things for ourselves. But the way we like to structure it is that the general contractor would have its profit center, and then the development company would have its profit center. And then the GC would invest into the profit into the project if they chose to, but at least on paper we would keep them separate. What I found, part of the reason why we are slowly going away from building things ourselves is there's a lot of risk, additional risk that you're taking on when you're GCing your own product. Which is, if you made an estimation mistake, like you described before, you're estimating things, and if things don't work out, who do you have to blame? Well, no one but yourself, right? Your employee, if they were in charge of estimating the job, if they made a mistake, well, the best thing you could do is fire them, right? But the problem doesn't go away. How do you handle that? How do you mitigate that risk?
We spend a lot of time up front on pricing. And there's and here's an unique thing is I have a good relationship, probably a bunch of other, like, called self-performing, but one is actually a local, fairly larger general contracting company. One of their estimators was a good is a partner on some things with myself and a good friend. And we'll sit down and we do open book studies where we let's say have a similar build going on, and we compare pricing, saying, what are you getting for this? What are you getting for that? And what trades are this? So make sure you're finding, like, are you missing something? And we go through it. And when you go through a company that's done tons and tons of building, and you go line by line on your items, you start to feel very confident about your pricing. There's some mistakes somewhere, but you find things that, oh, I missed this, or we can add in this, or, you find a supplier that's different. You're going, oh, maybe you want to go look at this for tubs or countertops, or whatever. And you can find some really unique savings here and there. And likewise, I mean, he's asking me too, because they're looking for where can they find some savings too. And then you have, I know I do a golfing tournament every year with some guys who've done it for like 10 years. And one of them is some idea. He's a self-build. They do self-building they do smaller, they do a lot of smaller senior housing type of stuff.
Mhm.
And same idea, we talk about where are you finding the things that are costing lots and where are you finding deals. And so you come up with like, you can know, am I getting a good price here, a proper price? And what am I missing? The other side is working with a project manager who's built probably 20 buildings that are almost the same as what we're building right now. Like his list is pretty concise, right? It's like, this is, you need this, you need this, you need this. And he looks through the quotes. Oh, they're missing this. Okay, make sure they add in this. Or, oh, they're quoting this wrong, or like what the case. So it lets us be pretty tight. And like I said, working with our previous project manager partner type thing, you understood what your costs are too. So like your experience or time, if you're building very similar stuff, you start to get a pretty good idea of what everything costs. And so we build a contingency, often we call him the quantity surveyor, the guy who's, just making sure that everything you say is on the building so you get your loan advances.
Right.
They like to, I use a whatever percent, 5% contingency budget. I increase it all the time because it's always more. So like, I wish it was only 5%.
Oh, I know. Interesting.
Yeah, so
definitely. That's been probably the hardest thing for us to manage, running the construction division and the development division, because especially on complex jobs, when things are, and we kind of pride ourselves on doing things that are outside of typical realm. We'd go into like wetlands and steep slopes and projects like that, where it's very hard to anticipate what's actually going to happen. Yes, you can estimate all you want, but then you start digging, and usually surprises happen in the dirt, right? When unexpected surprises come up. So, but I'm glad it's working out. That's one of the things that we advise our partners, is that kind of how you started the conversation. Make sure that if you do it on your own, that's fine, but make sure you get advice of experienced people.
Yeah.
Tell me about. Oh, go ahead.
No, yeah, I agreed. Yes, you can get advice, lots of advice.
Right. So tell me about some of the challenges, some of the biggest losses or lessons learned in the past.
Probably some of the biggest. I'm going to go back to say that retail dollar store that we did. Lost a lot of money there. A lot of people would be very shocked to know how much we lost there. I can't quantify it. Well, I can quantify it to a certain approximate dollar amount. I call it a nice and a very expensive Ivy League school education. Maybe I got a master's at an Ivy League school education, somewhere around that range. So I got one of those educations. The key item in those types of scenarios is, when you lose like that and you have a hard time, often you have people come out of the woodwork that are very successful in life, and they tell you their losses, what they've done, and how they lost a bunch, and how they decide to get up and get going, and use that as not as, okay, I failed one time. And just to be clear, I didn't lose anybody else's money. It's just my own, right? Just me and my partners internally. Like, we have outside investors. And so I'm not out there to say we lost a whole bunch of people money and then ran away. We lost our own money. We learned a lesson, and you move on, right? And you say, what did I learn? How can I avoid that in the future? And go from there. I mean, yeah, we lost a whole bunch, but like where I was talking about with the buildings that we done well on, that retail store, from that building, we bought a different building and we subdivided it and sold both of those off as well. So I mean, we made the money back that we lost on real estate. So what I learned is real estate can often, even if it's good real estate, you can typically do okay, even if you make mistakes. Is there to backstop you quite well. Probably some other stuff is you just got to, we haven't made too much construction mistakes just because we're very careful on what we do up front. I'd say one time we probably we did this wall system lumber was being weird with pricing. So we tried out this wall system where it's like a steel structure, exterior walls with impregnated with styrofoam called like an ICE wall. Really nice product, expensive. But at the time we thought, wood price and the price of this was very similar. Well, by the time we ordered it and it came and everything was delayed because of this wall system, lumber prices had come down to the point where it would have been cheaper to build just conventional stick frame. We have a really good product. I mean, longevity, that's a fantastic, your walls are steel, your insulation is higher level. I mean, the tenants pay for their own heat and cooling. So they have a cheaper, we have the same building in the same area, one built conventionally, one built this way. Their monthly costs on hydro, we call it hydro up here because most of our electricity comes from hydroelectric dams.
Right.
It's less there in that building. So that would be the one mistake, and just, but you make decisions because you're moving along. We had a financing issue where we used some unique financing structures, and we thought we had financing, but the wording I couldn't comply to on some of the terms. And I was like, it kind of, it became then that's where I pivoted very fast. And we went, oh shoot, we don't have financing. We had walls up. Remember, you spent all your own money first, right? Well, while we're waiting for this to come through, we had it approved, but it was the wrong kind. And quickly I pivoted and I found a new lender within 3 weeks, and we had everything flowing. But in the meantime, you're calling your supply company and a couple trades. And you're like, it's coming. The money's coming. Oh, that was stressful. I got all my white hair during that time period. No, I was kidding. It's been here for a while. I mean, looking at things, the bankers that we deal with, they typically have fairly concise due diligence lists of what kind of, to make sure you have in place. And those things often help us to make a decision as well. See, because you have to do, an phase 1 environmental survey. So they come out and, they do make sure that there's nothing environmentally on site that could come back and bite us. Especially when we go bigger, with weight buildings and stuff like that. We have to do geotechnical surveys. I mean, where we are is basically farmland. It's fairly flat, but you can find there's one building in the town that we are in. They're a big 4-story commercial building. They wanted to put a basement in and put a gym in the basement. And they didn't realize that below where they were, there was kind of like an underground water movement. So they have no basement now, and they had to divert the water. It was very expensive. So we have another piece of land under contract that we want to buy, but in our due diligence period, we're doing geotechnical. So it costs us some money up front,
right? But
now we know for sure, hey, can we just do a standard foundation, or are we drilling into swampland and, it's going to cost us double the amount of concrete?
Right.
That kind of thing.
So several, and unpack this. So there's several lessons with these different examples. What would you say was the lesson with the framing system or the wall system? When you try to go in one direction and then realized it wasn't necessary, you could have gone with a traditional system. Is there a lesson here, or is just bad luck, bad timing?
I think the biggest thing is don't stress over it. But as long as the numbers worked with both systems, like, it worked, even though it's maybe a bit more than conventional would have been if we waited. Sometimes you got to make a decision. And I mean, you just got to be, the decision was made, now it's done, and move on. And don't, and you can't change afterwards. I mean, you could, but now it's going to cost you more money because now you have a contract somewhere and you're going to rain on that contract to try to save. It doesn't work that way. Sometimes being innovative, like taking an innovative product and trying to go with it, doesn't save. You thought maybe you could save some time on it, and it didn't save us any time. So those kinds of things, you're learning those pieces. And I mean, sometimes you listen to advice of others and it's not always right. And that's okay too. I mean, typically you listen to the people who've been ahead of you or been doing that. It's like, am I going to listen to somebody about building apartments who's never built an apartment in their lifetime? No, they don't. Their advice is probably not valid. If I listen to somebody about business and how it relates to, let's say, our businesses, then we could take that advice. But generally speaking, don't listen to advice from people who haven't kind of been there. and then also look at what their experiences has and what their successes has, and you can determine whether it's useful advice or just talk.
Right. Right. Yeah, I would add to that especially with innovative products or solutions like that, I would like to see it being tested elsewhere. I don't want to be the one to test it first, unless it's it's an experimental project and you're willing to take the loss and willing to spend extra time and money. But generally speaking, I'd say make sure it's been done before. Make sure that talk to people that have built it before, used it before, to know that it's a tested product. A lot of times with innovative solutions too, you want to know that they perform in the future. So even though somebody used that product to build something, how do you know that it's going to perform over the next 5 years or 10 years? I would like to see that product being actually tested in the market, seeing what kind of issues it might have in the future, because those do come up.
Yeah, exactly. You want to make sure you got a good product, even if it's innovative.
Exactly. With financing, so you sounds like you misread the term sheet that was presented to you. How do you mitigate that in the future and make sure that it doesn't happen again?
It's funny you say that. They actually changed some of the term. Like, this is a national loan program, and you depend on brokers to kind of give you a leg up. And so our building codes. So when you build we typically build what we call Part 9 buildings of the building code where we are. Part 9 building codes, your square footage stays within a certain square footage. And if you want to go bigger than that, you have to separate your areas by firewalls or by floors. If you have a bigger footprint, you have to go to Part 3 building code. And a Part 3 building code requires architects and fire suppression and a bunch of other things. A lot of the communities right now that we're building in, if some of them were actually drilling wells for our water, we don't have town water. You can't run a fire suppression system in there. You really can't build, I'll call that a Part 3 building. So you have to build Part 9, which is fine. There's some unique story. It's still all engineered and stamped off and all that kind of stuff. It's just a little simpler in some ways, and because it stays in a smaller footprint. Now, the way the financing was saying that we needed architectural approvals and stuff, but that doesn't apply to our building. We don't have to. We follow the building code to the letter, but the terms didn't apply. So we actually, because of this, they actually rewrote some of those terms going in the future because of our case and our broker and how upset he was because I moved the financing elsewhere on this one. He wasn't happy about that. I don't blame him, but I mean, I said, well, it's on you because I'm building Part 9. You should know that, that I couldn't comply. Had I known some of that stuff earlier, I probably could have had a structural engineer sign off on some of that stuff earlier. But like you said, it's one of those things where live and learn. You learn as we go. I mean, but like I said, they rewrote some things, and maybe it was missing experience of the broker. Wasn't quite there yet, but I mean, he learns now. Now he knows very, very well how that all works. So
right.
It all worked out.
Great. Excellent. Well, it looks like we've been talking for about half an hour. It's about time to wrap up. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention, specifically bring up? Anything cool that you're working on?
Well, like I said, we kind of model our ideas and things off of a motto of crawl, walk, run, where I would say, let's say that 16 unit and the 20 unit that we built right in the beginning, we were crawling, learning the processes, learning all the different pieces involved, learning the pre-development piece on land structure and everything. Then we run. We're building. Walking. I would say the building we're doing right now, and probably in a year or two we'll be running. So lots of great stuff to look forward to, where we decide to go a little bit bigger. And for now we'll just keep developing and having fun doing it. And there's always things we'll do in the future. It just seems that it hits the button on getting good products to invest in for long term, and then you have a really good product on brand new development. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks for having me on, Eugene.
Absolutely. It's definitely a marathon. How does one find you on if we have investors listening that might be interested in your projects or potential clients, tenants, buyers of your properties? How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you find me on LinkedIn, Owen Reimer, or you can find us at our website, stoneshorecapital.com. So I'm easy to find in those places. Drop me a line on LinkedIn or whatever. I'm always good to have a chat. So
we'll have those contacts in the description. Thanks again, Owen.
Thank you.
Owen Reimer, your guy so true. Building dreams for me and you. Invest in dreams, watch them grow. Owen's path, the way to go. Owen dreams in steel and glass, breaking new ground and making it last. Manitoba's own, with the vision so clear, bringing investors, there's nothing to fear. From Winnipeg skies, wide open lands, building futures with steady hands. New communities rise where he leads. Owen knows just what you need.